The spoon trembled in the billionaire's hand. One taste, just one, and Ethan Vale's carefully constructed world began to crack. The soup wasn't supposed to exist anymore. The woman who knew how to make it had died 20 years ago, taking her secrets and her heartbreak to the grave. But here it was, steaming in a chipped bowl, prepared by a waitress whose name he didn't even know. In that crowded Manhattan restaurant surrounded by crystal and silk, Ethan tasted something more dangerous than memory. He tasted the truth his father had buried. And the quiet woman watching from the kitchen doorway? She knew everything. Want to see how far this story reaches? Drop a like, comment your city, and let's see where this journey takes us. The rain came down in sheets, turning Fifth Avenue into a river of brake lights and honking taxis. Ethan Vale sat in the back of his Mercedes, watching water streak down the window, his son's small hand warm in his own. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Oliver said. The boy was 5, all dark curls and serious eyes, too serious for a kid his age. Ethan knew why. Kids got serious when their mothers walked out on them. "I know, buddy. We're almost there." Marcus, his driver, caught his eye in the rearview mirror. "Mr. Vale, Aurelius is just ahead. Traffic's murder tonight." Ethan nodded. Aurelius. The kind of restaurant where reservations took 3 months, and the wait list had its own wait list. He'd bought it 6 months ago. One more property in a portfolio so vast he sometimes forgot what he owned. Tonight, though, he wasn't thinking about business. He was thinking about how Oliver had barely eaten in 3 days, how the kid just pushed food around his plate with that lost look in his eyes. The car pulled up to the entrance. A valet rushed forward with an umbrella, but Ethan waved him off. He scooped Oliver into his arms and made a run for it, the boy giggling as rain soaked them both. It was the first time Ethan had heard him laugh in weeks. The restaurant's interior hit like a warm slap, all low lighting and jazz piano, the smell of truffle oil and money. The maitre d', a sharp-faced man named Gerald, practically genuflected. "Mr. Vale, we weren't expecting you tonight. Your usual table, whatever's available is fine." Ethan set Oliver down, smoothing the boy's wet hair. "We just need food." Gerald's smile tightened. In places like this, spontaneity was a sin. But when you owned the building, the rules bent. "Of course, sir. Right this way." They wove through tables of hedge fund managers and socialites, past conversations about summer houses and stock options. Oliver pressed close to Ethan's leg, overwhelmed. The kid had grown up in penthouses and private jets, but he'd never quite adapted to the performance of wealth. He was too much like his mother that way, Sarah, who'd hated every gilded cage Ethan had built for her. Don't think about Sarah. Their table was by the window, rain drumming against the glass. A waitress appeared, young, brunette, professionally invisible. She rattled off specials with the enthusiasm of someone reading a phone book. "Just bring us—" Ethan paused, looking at Oliver. "What do you want, champ?" The boy shrugged, staring at his lap. The waitress waited, pen poised. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. 3 weeks ago, Oliver would have asked for chicken fingers or mac and cheese. Normal kid food. Now he just sat there, small and silent, like he was afraid to take up space. "Give us a minute," Ethan said. The waitress nodded and vanished. Ethan reached across the table, tilting Oliver's chin up. "Hey, talk to me." "I'm not hungry anymore." "Oliver, I want Mommy's soup." The words landed like a punch. Ethan sat back, the air suddenly thick in his lungs. "What?" "The soup Mommy used to make before she left." Oliver's eyes were filling up, and Ethan felt his own throat close. "The one that tasted like, I don't know, like when things were okay." Ethan's jaw clenched. Sarah's soup. The one thing she'd actually known how to cook, passed down from some grandmother or aunt. Ethan had never paid attention to the story. A clear broth with vegetables and something else, something he could never identify. She'd made it once a month, always on Sundays, and Oliver had loved it. "Buddy, I don't think they make that here." "Can you ask?" God, those eyes. Ethan would have bought the moon if Oliver asked with those eyes. He flagged down Gerald, who materialized like a well-dressed ghost. "Sir? Do you have anything like—" Ethan paused, feeling ridiculous. "A vegetable soup?" "Clear broth, very simple. My son's mother used to make it." Gerald's expression suggested Ethan had just asked for gas station sushi. We have a winter vegetable velouté with... No, not a velouté, just clear soup, vegetables, nothing fancy. I'll inquire with the kitchen, sir. He disappeared. Oliver watched the rain, small fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth. Ethan checked his phone. Emails from Tokyo, a crisis brewing in the Singapore office, his CFO asking about the quarterly reports. He put the phone face down. None of it mattered if Oliver kept shrinking into himself like this. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, Gerald returned, his expression apologetic. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Vale. Chef Rousseau says that type of simple preparation isn't something we typically offer. However, he'd be happy to prepare. Let me talk to him. Gerald blanched. Sir, Chef Rousseau is in the middle of service. I own this restaurant. Get him out here. The murmur of nearby conversation stuttered. A woman in pearls glanced over, eyebrows raised. Gerald nodded stiffly and retreated. Ethan could feel the attention, but he didn't care. He'd bought this place to impress clients, to have somewhere to take Oliver that felt special. What was the point if they couldn't make one simple thing? A few minutes later, a tall man in pristine whites emerged from the kitchen, moving like he expected a parade. Chef Philippe Rousseau. 3 Michelin stars, ego the size of France. Ethan had met him once during the acquisition, found him insufferable. Mr. Vale. Rousseau's accent was thick as butter. Gerald mentioned you have a request. My son wants a clear vegetable soup, that's all. Rousseau's smile was patronizing. Sir, we are a fine dining establishment. Our menu is carefully curated. A simple broth would be... I'm not asking you to put it on the menu. I'm asking you to make it for a 5-year-old kid. The chef's expression hardened. With respect, Mr. Vale, my kitchen is not a diner. If you wanted diner food, perhaps... I wanted my son to have a meal. That's it. Ethan's voice stayed level, but there was steel underneath. You're telling me that with all your training, all your expertise, you can't make a pot of soup? I'm telling you that it's beneath this restaurant's standards. The words hung in the air. Oliver was looking down at his lap again, shoulders hunched. Something hot and ugly rose in Ethan's throat. All the frustration of the past month, all the nights Oliver had cried himself to sleep, all the times Ethan had felt powerless to fix his son's broken heart. Get out of my sight, Ethan said quietly. Rousseau's jaw dropped. Excuse me? You heard me. Go back to your kitchen. We're done here. For a moment, the chef looked ready to argue. Then he seemed to remember who signed the checks. He gave a curt nod and strode back toward the kitchen, spine rigid with offense. Gerald hovered nearby, pale and anxious. Ethan squeezed Oliver's hand. Come on, buddy. Let's go somewhere else. Mr. Vale, wait. The voice was female, quiet, but clear. Ethan turned. A waitress stood a few feet away, not the brunette from before, someone else. She was maybe 30, wearing the same black uniform as the others, but something about her was different. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple bun, no makeup, no jewelry. She had the kind of face that didn't demand attention, but once you looked, you kept looking. There was something steady in her eyes. I can make it, she said. Gerald made a strangled sound. Miss Hart, this is completely inappropriate. I can make the soup the boy wants. She was looking at Ethan now, not at Gerald, not at the staring diners. If you'll let me. Ethan studied her. Her hands were trembling slightly, but her gaze was direct. You're a waitress. Yes, but I know how to cook. The kitchen is closed to front-of-house staff, Gerald sputtered. Chef Rousseau would never... Oh, Chef Rousseau just walked away, Ethan said, not breaking eye contact with the woman. What's your name? Lena. Lena Hart. You really think you can make this soup, Lena? She nodded. I know I can. Something in her certainty made him believe her. Or maybe he was just desperate. Either way, he gestured toward the kitchen. Show me. Gerald looked like he might faint. Sir, this is highly irregular. Gerald, if you say one more word, you're fired. Lena, lead the way. She moved through this dining room with surprising confidence, pushing through the kitchen doors. Ethan followed with Oliver in his arms. The kitchen was chaos, steam and shouting, pans clanging, sous chefs racing between stations. Everyone stopped when they saw Ethan. Rousseau appeared from the far end, his face purpling. What is the meaning of this? You cannot simply waltz into my kitchen. Your kitchen? Ethan set Oliver down carefully. Last I checked, this was my kitchen. And Miss Hart here is going to use it. Anyone got a problem with that? The silence was absolute. Lena walked to an empty station, rolling up her sleeves. Her movements were quick, practiced. She didn't look at anyone, just started gathering ingredients from the coolers. Carrots, celery, onions. A young line cook watched her with wide eyes. "Ma'am, do you need stock?" Lena said. "Vegetable stock if you have it. If not, I'll make it." "We have stock." The kid scrambled to help her. Rousseau was sputtering, but Ethan ignored him. He crouched beside Oliver, who was peeking around his leg at the bustling kitchen. "You okay, buddy?" Oliver nodded, eyes wide. "Is she really making Mommy's soup?" "We're going to find out." Lena worked with the kind of efficiency that came from years of practice. Not culinary school showboating. She had the stock heating, vegetables dicing under her knife in perfect, even cuts. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Ethan found himself drawn closer, watching. "Where'd you learn to cook?" he asked. "My grandmother." Lena didn't look up, focused on mincing ginger. "She taught me everything." "She must have been good." She was. Something flickered across Lena's face. Grief, maybe, or memory. She worked in kitchens her whole life, said food was the only honest language. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Oliver pressed against his side, watching Lena's hands move. The kitchen had returned to its rhythm around them. Though Ethan could feel the sideways glances, hear the whispers, Rousseau had retreated to the far end, radiating fury. 20 minutes later, Lena ladled soup into a bowl, simple white china, nothing fancy. The broth was clear and golden, vegetables floating like little gems. She carried it to a small table near the wall, setting it down carefully. "It needs to cool for a minute," she said to Oliver, "so you don't burn your tongue." The boy nodded solemnly. Ethan pulled out a chair for him and Oliver climbed up. They waited, the three of them, while the kitchen moved around them. Steam rose from the bowl, carrying a smell that made Ethan's chest tighten. It smelled like home, like Sunday afternoons when Sarah would actually smile, when Oliver was a baby and things hadn't fallen apart yet. "Okay," Lena said softly. "You can try it now." Oliver picked up the spoon, his hand dwarfing it. He took a careful sip, eyes closing. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he took another spoonful. And another. "Is it?" Ethan couldn't finish the question. Oliver looked up at him, and there were tears on his cheeks, but he was smiling. "It tastes like Mommy's." The relief hit Ethan like a wave. He reached out, squeezing Oliver's shoulder. "Yeah?" "Yeah." Oliver went back to eating, hunched over the bowl like someone might take it away. Ethan straightened, turning to Lena. She was watching Oliver with an expression he couldn't quite read, soft, almost sad. "I don't know what to say. Thank you doesn't seem like enough." "It's just soup," she said quietly. "It's not, though, is it?" Their eyes met. For a second, something passed between them, recognition, maybe, understanding. Then Lena looked away, wiping her hands on a towel. "I should get back to work." "Wait." Ethan pulled out his wallet, extracting several bills. "Take this." She glanced at the money, $500 at least, and shook her head. "I don't need—" "Take it, please." "Mr. Vale." "Ethan, and you just made my kid smile for the first time in 3 weeks. Take the money." She hesitated, then accepted the bills with obvious reluctance, tucking them into her apron pocket. "Thank you. Can I ask you something?" "Okay." "What's in it? The soup? There's something I can't identify." Lena smiled just a little. "It's a secret." "Come on." "My grandmother made me promise never to tell. She said some recipes are meant to stay hidden." Before Ethan could respond, Rousseau materialized, his face a thundercloud. "Miss Hart, you are fired. Effective immediately." The words fell like stones. Lena went pale, her hand moving to her apron pocket, the pocket with the money. "Chef, I was only trying to— You violated a dozen protocols. You entered my kitchen without permission. You used ingredients without authorization." Rousseau looked at Ethan. "With respect, Mr. Vale, I cannot allow this kind of insubordination. If word got out that any waitress could simply—" "She's not fired," Ethan said. Rousseau blinked. I beg your pardon? You heard me. She stays. Mr. Vale, as head chef, I have the authority to... No, you don't. I do. And I say she stays. Ethan glanced at Lena, who looked stunned. Actually, I'd like to speak with you tomorrow. Can you come to my office? Yes, of course. Good. Gerald will give you the address. Ethan turned to Oliver, who had finished every drop of soup and was looking drowsy and content. Come on, buddy. Let's get you home. He scooped the boy up. Oliver's head dropped onto his shoulder, that boneless trust of an exhausted child. As they walked out of the kitchen, Ethan caught Lena's eye one more time. She was still standing there, hands clasped in front of her, looking like someone had just rewritten her entire world. Join her club, Ethan thought. Be cool. The penthouse was dark and quiet when they arrived. Oliver was fully asleep now, drooling on Ethan's shoulder. The nanny, Mrs. Chen, met them at the door, taking in their rain-soaked appearance with barely concealed disapproval. Rough night? She asked. You could say that. Ethan carried Oliver to his bedroom, a space decorated like a spaceship, all glow-in-the-dark stars and model rockets. He tucked the boy in, pulling the covers up to his chin. Oliver stirred, but didn't wake. Ethan stood there for a moment, watching him sleep. The kid looked peaceful for the first time in weeks, all because of a bowl of soup. Because one woman had been brave enough, or crazy enough, to step into a hostile kitchen and do what an award-winning chef refused to do. He thought about Lena's face, the steadiness in her eyes, the way she'd moved through that kitchen like she belonged there, even though everyone else made it clear she didn't. There was a story there. He could feel it. In his study, Ethan poured himself a scotch and stood at the window, looking out at the rain-slicked city. 40 stories below, Manhattan glittered and hummed. Somewhere down there, Lena Hart was probably heading home, $500 richer and probably terrified about what she'd just done. He pulled out his phone and texted his assistant. Need a background check on someone. Lena Hart works at Aurelius. Full report by tomorrow morning. The reply came within seconds. On it, boss. Ethan sipped his scotch, the taste harsh and familiar. He'd built an empire on information, on knowing everything about everyone before they knew anything about him. It was how you stayed ahead, how you kept control. But as he stood there, tasting that soup again in his memory, he had the uncomfortable feeling that control was the last thing he had right now. Lena's apartment was in Astoria, a fourth-floor walk-up that smelled like cooking and old radiators. She climbed the stairs slowly, exhausted down to her bones. It was past midnight. Her feet ached. Her hands still shook. Inside, the babysitter, Mrs. Kim from down the hall, was asleep on the couch, the TV playing some late-night talk show. Lena paid her, adding an extra $20 because it was so late, and locked the door behind her. Her daughter's room was down the hall, barely bigger than a closet. Lena pushed the door open quietly. Mia was asleep, buried under blankets, her small face peaceful. She was 7, all wild curls and endless questions. The doctor said she had 6 months, maybe less, if they didn't find a donor match, if they couldn't afford the treatment. Lena pulled out the bills from her apron pocket. $500. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was $500 more than she'd had this morning. She thought about Ethan Vale's face when his son had smiled, the desperate relief in his eyes. Lena understood that desperation. She lived with it every day. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gerald. Mr. Vale's office is at 245 Park Avenue, 40th floor. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. Lena sat on the edge of Mia's bed watching her daughter breathe. In and out, each breath a small miracle. I don't know what's happening, baby, she whispered, but I'm going to figure it out, I promise. Mia didn't stir. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing the city clean, carrying secrets down to the river and out to sea. Maga. Ethan's assistant, Jennifer, was nothing if not efficient. By 8 a.m. the next morning, she had a folder on his desk. Thin, depressingly thin. Lena Hart, age 30, no college degree. Worked at Aurelius for 6 years, always front of house, never promoted. Before that, a string of restaurant jobs going back to her teens. Father unknown. Mother deceased when Lena was 12. raised by her grandmother, Maria Hart, who died 4 years ago. One daughter, Mia Hart, age 7. No father listed on the birth certificate. And then, buried in the medical records that Jennifer had somehow obtained, Mia Hart, diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Current status: searching for bone marrow donor. Estimated cost of treatment, $400,000. Ethan closed the folder, his jaw tight. $400,000. Pocket change to him. A lifetime of debt to her. He thought about the way Lena had looked at Oliver, that soft sadness in her eyes. She'd been watching a child eat soup like it was the most important thing in the world, because she knew. She knew what it was like to watch a child suffer and feel powerless to stop it. A knock at the door. Jennifer poked her head in. "Miss Hart is here." "Send her in." Lena entered like she was walking into an execution. She wore a simple dress, dark blue, nothing fancy. Her hair was down today, falling past her shoulders. She clutched a small purse in front of her like a shield. "Mr. Vale." "Ethan, please, sit down." She perched on the edge of the chair across from his desk, back straight, hands folded. Ethan studied her. In the harsh light of his office, she looked tired. There were shadows under her eyes, worry lines around her mouth. This was a woman who carried weight. "I want to be honest with you," Ethan said. "I had you investigated." The color drained from her face. "Why?" "Because I don't trust easily, and because what happened last night, that wasn't normal. I needed to understand who you are. And what did you find?" Her voice was steady, but her hands tightened on the purse. "That you're a single mother working a dead-end job to pay for your daughter's cancer treatment. That you've been at Aurelius for 6 years and never once asked for a promotion. That your grandmother taught you to cook, and she died owing my father's company $300,000. Lena went very still. "What?" Ethan pulled out another folder, this one older, the pages yellowed. "Maria Hart. She took out a loan 23 years ago to open a restaurant. The restaurant failed within a year. She spent the rest of her life trying to pay it back, but the interest kept compounding. When she died, she still owed Vale Capital $290,000. "I don't understand. Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want to know why you didn't tell me last night. You made my son a soup that your grandmother taught you. The same grandmother who lost everything to my father. You could have poisoned it. You could have spit in it. But you didn't. Why?" Lena's laugh was bitter. "You think I'd hurt a child because I'm angry at his grandfather?" "I think most people would want some kind of revenge." "I'm not most people." She met his eyes, and there was fire there now, burning through the fatigue. "My grandmother taught me to cook because she loved it, because it was the one thing no one could take from her. She didn't pass down bitterness. She passed down recipes." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "What happened to the restaurant?" "I don't know all the details. I was 7 when it closed. But I know your father's company owned the building. I know they raised the rent so high she couldn't afford it. I know she begged for more time and they refused." Lena's voice was flat, reciting facts. "She worked in other people's kitchens for 20 years, sending every spare dollar to Vale Capital. It wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" The question hung between them. Ethan thought about his father, Victor Vale, the kind of man who saw people as assets or liabilities, nothing in between. He'd built an empire by being ruthless, by crushing anyone who got in his way. Ethan had inherited that empire, had added to it. How many other Maria Harts were out there, buried in the ledgers? "I want to help you," he said finally. Lena's laugh was sharp. "Why?" "Because you helped my son, and because I can. I don't need charity." "It's not charity, it's business." Ethan pulled out a contract he'd had Jennifer draft that morning. "I want you to cook for Oliver, 3 times a week, whatever he wants. I'll pay you $50,000 a month." Lena stared at the paper like it was written in a foreign language. "That's insane." "That's the offer. No one pays $50,000 for a few meals a week." "I do." Ethan pushed the contract across the desk. "Your daughter needs treatment. This would cover it, and then some. All you have to do is cook." She didn't touch the paper. "What's the catch?" "No catch." "There's always a catch." Ethan smiled, but there was no humor in it. "You're right. The catch is that I don't do things without a reason. And my reason is that Oliver smiled last night for the first time since his mother left. If you can keep making him smile, that's worth more than money to me. Lena was quiet for a long time, staring at the contract. Finally, she looked up. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need, but Lena... He waited until she met his eyes. Your daughter doesn't have much time. You know that, right? It was a low blow, and he knew it, but it was also true. Her face went pale, and for a moment he thought she might cry. Instead, she stood up, smoothing her dress. I'll give you my answer tomorrow. Fair enough. She walked to the door, then paused. The soup. You asked what the secret ingredient was. Yeah, star anise. Just a little, crushed fine. My grandmother said it was the smell of home. Lena smiled, sad and small. Your son's mother must have known that recipe. Must have learned it from someone who learned it from someone else. Recipes travel like that. They find the people who need them. She left before Ethan could respond. He sat there, the contract on his desk, the morning sun streaming through the windows. 40 stories below, the city roared and moved, millions of people living lives he'd never see, carrying stories he'd never hear. Star anise, the smell of home. Ethan thought about his childhood, the cold marble halls of the Vale mansion, the dinners eaten in silence, his father at one end of the table, his mother at the other, both of them 1,000 miles away. He'd never known what home smelled like, but Oliver had once. When Sarah had still loved them, when she'd made soup on Sundays and sung off-key in the kitchen. Ethan picked up his phone and texted Jennifer. Cancel my afternoon meetings. I need to make a call. Then he dialed a number he hadn't used in 5 years. It rang 3 times before a woman's voice answered, cautious and cold. Sarah. A pause. Ethan? Yeah, it's me. What do you want? He could hear traffic in the background, voices. She was somewhere public. Maybe she'd changed her number. Maybe she'd moved on completely. It didn't matter. I need to ask you something about the soup you used to make. The one with star anise. Another pause, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Why? Because Oliver asked for it. Because a stranger made it for him last night, and he smiled. A stranger? It's complicated. Sarah laughed, and it sounded like breaking glass. With you it always is. Sarah, I learned that recipe from my grandmother. She learned it from a woman she worked with in a restaurant decades ago. I don't even know the woman's name. A car horn blared on her end. Why does it matter? I'm not sure yet, Ethan admitted, but I think it does. Is Oliver okay? He's managing. He misses you. I miss him too. Her voice cracked. But I can't, Ethan, I can't do this right now. I know, I wasn't calling to... He stopped, not sure what he was calling to do. I just wanted you to know he's okay. Thank you. The line went dead. Ethan set the phone down, staring at it like it might offer answers. Instead, it just sat there, silent and useless. Outside, Manhattan glittered in the morning sun. Somewhere in Astoria, Lena Hart was probably making breakfast for her daughter, counting pills, praying to a god who seemed determined not to listen. And somewhere in the kitchen of Aurelius, Chef Philippe Rousseau was probably plotting how to destroy them both. Ethan didn't know it yet, but the soup had started something, a chain reaction that would bring buried secrets into the light, that would burn down everything he thought he knew and rebuild it from the ashes. All because one woman had been brave enough to step into a kitchen and remember what home was supposed to taste like. Lena didn't go home. She walked for hours instead. The contract folded in her purse like a live grenade. $50,000 a month. The words kept repeating in her head until they lost all meaning, became just sounds, noise. She found herself at the hospital without planning to, standing outside the oncology wing where Mia spent 3 afternoons a week getting treatments that made her throw up and lose her hair and cry for hours. The building was gray and imposing, all sharp corners and reflective glass. Lena hated it, hated the smell of antiseptic and despair that clung to her clothes every time she visited, hated the way the nurses smiled with pity in their eyes. Her phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Kim. Mia asking for you, says her stomach hurts. Lena closed her eyes. The treatments were getting worse. Dr. Patel had said as much last week, his voice carefully neutral as he explained that without the transplant, they were just buying time. Months, maybe. Not years. She texted back, "On my way." The walk to Astoria took an hour. She couldn't afford a cab, and the subway felt too small, too crowded. She needed air, needed to think. By the time she climbed the 4 flights to her apartment, the sun was setting, painting the hallway in shades of amber and rust. Inside, Mrs. Kim was doing dishes while Mia sat at the tiny kitchen table, coloring. The girl looked up when Lena entered, her face lighting up. "Mama!" Lena knelt down, pulling her daughter into a hug that lasted too long. Mia smelled like strawberry shampoo and medicine. Her arms were so thin. When had they gotten so thin? "How do you feel, baby?" "Okay. My tummy hurts a little." Mia pulled back, studying Lena's face with those 2 old eyes. "You look sad." "I'm not sad. Just tired." "Mrs. Kim made mac and cheese. Do you want some?" Lena's stomach was a knot, but she nodded. "Sure." Mrs. Kim served them both, then quietly let herself out. Lena and Mia ate in silence, the scrape of forks the only sound. The apartment was small, 1 bedroom, a bathroom with a shower that only worked sometimes, a kitchen where you could touch both walls if you stretched. But it was theirs. It was home. After dinner, Lena tucked Mia into bed, reading from their current book, a fantasy about dragons and princesses. Mia fell asleep halfway through the chapter, her breathing evening out. Lena sat there a while longer, watching her chest rise and fall. $50,000 a month. She pulled out the contract, reading it again in the dim light from the hallway. The terms were simple, almost too simple. Cook for Oliver Vale 3 times a week, whatever he wanted. No restrictions, no requirements beyond showing up and making food. There had to be a catch. Men like Ethan Vale didn't hand out money without strings attached. She'd learned that from her grandmother's stories about Victor Vale and his company, about the way they'd squeezed Maria Hart until there was nothing left to squeeze. But then she thought about Oliver's face when he'd tasted the soup, the pure joy in those eyes, the way he'd smiled at her like she'd given him the world. Lena pulled out her phone and typed before she could change her mind. "I'll do it. When do I start?" The reply came within seconds. "Tomorrow, 6 p.m. I'll send a car." She stared at the screen, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then she shut the phone off and went to bed, lying awake in the dark, listening to Mia breathe and wondering what she'd just agreed to. The car that picked her up the next evening was a Mercedes, black and gleaming. The driver was the same man from that rainy night. Marcus, Ethan had called him. He held the door open for her like she was someone important, someone worth the courtesy. "Miss Hart?" "Just Lena is fine." "Lena," he smiled. "Mr. Vale's expecting you." The penthouse was everything her apartment wasn't: space and light and air. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, Central Park a dark sprawl in the distance. The furniture was modern and cold, all sharp lines and leather. It looked like a magazine spread, like no one actually lived there. Oliver appeared from a hallway, running full tilt. "You came!" Lena caught him as he crashed into her legs, laughing. "Of course I came. I promised, didn't I? Daddy said you might not. He said you were busy." "Well, I'm here now." She knelt down to his level. "What do you want to eat?" Oliver's face scrunched up in thought. "Can you make the soup again?" "I can make anything you want." "But I want the soup." Lena glanced up. Ethan stood in the doorway watching them. He'd changed out of his suit into jeans and a sweater, looking more human somehow, more tired. "The soup it is," Lena said. "Where's the kitchen?" Ethan led her through the massive space. The kitchen was pristine, all stainless steel and marble countertops. It looked like it had never been used, every surface gleaming. "Do you actually cook?" Lena asked. "No, I order in." "Every night?" "Pretty much." Ethan opened the fridge. It was nearly empty. Some takeout containers, a gallon of milk, juice boxes. "I'm not much of a chef." "I can see that." Lena started opening cabinets, taking inventory. "You don't even have basic spices." "I'll have them delivered, whatever you need." "I need to go shopping, properly." She turned to face him. "If I'm going to cook 3 times a week, I need real ingredients. Fresh vegetables, good stock, actual seasonings." "Done. Make a list." She did right there on her phone, rattling off items while Ethan typed them into his. It felt surreal, ordering hundreds of dollars of groceries like it was nothing, like money was just a concept instead of the thing that kept her up at night counting pennies. "I'll have everything here by tomorrow," Ethan said. "Tonight, can you work with what we have?" Lena opened the fridge again, assessing. "I can make do, but it won't be as good." Oliver won't care. He was right. When she served the soup an hour later, Oliver devoured it like he'd been starving, talking between bites about his day at school, about a kid named Marcus who'd shared his crayons, about a science project on volcanoes. Ethan listened with the focused attention of someone who knew every word mattered, who knew kids only talked about the important stuff if you actually listened. Lena watched them from the kitchen, washing dishes by hand because the dishwasher was too complicated. Father and son, dark heads bent together. There was love there, fierce and obvious, but there was also something broken, some crack running through the foundation. After Oliver went to bed, Ethan poured himself a drink and gestured for Lena to join him on the balcony. The night air was cool, the city spreading out below them like a field of stars. "Thank you," he said. "You're paying me." "No thanks necessary." "Still." He sipped his scotch. "I meant what I said yesterday, about this not being charity. Oliver needs this, needs you." "He needs his mother." The words came out harder than she'd intended. Ethan's jaw tightened. His mother made her choice. Did she? Or did you make it impossible for her to stay? What's that supposed to mean? Lena turned to face him. "I've seen men like you before, men who think money solves everything, who build cages out of gold and wonder why people want to escape." Ethan stared at her, something dangerous flickering in his eyes. "You don't know anything about my marriage. I know you're raising a kid alone in a place that feels like a museum. I know he smiled when he tasted soup because it reminded him of when things were better. That tells me plenty. You've got some nerve. You hired me to cook. I'm cooking. But don't expect me to pretend your life is perfect just because you're rich." They stood there in the cooling night, the tension thick between them. Finally, Ethan laughed, a short bark of surprise. "You really don't give a damn, do you?" "I give a damn about my daughter, about keeping her alive. Everything else is just noise." "Fair enough." He drained his glass. "For what it's worth, you're right. About the cage. Sarah said the same thing before she left. Said she was suffocating. Did you try to understand why?" "I tried to fix it. Bought her things, took her places. Thought if I could just make things better." He stopped. "Doesn't matter now. She's gone." "Does Oliver know where she is?" "California somewhere. She calls once a month. Always promises to visit. Never does." Lena thought about Mia, about what it would take for her to leave her daughter. She couldn't imagine it, couldn't fathom that kind of pain or desperation. "I should go," she said. "It's late. Marcus will drive you. I can take the subway." "Marcus will drive you," Ethan repeated. "It's part of the deal." Lena wanted to argue, but she was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of pretending she didn't need help. So she nodded and followed him inside, past the pristine furniture and the expensive art, back to a world where things broke and stayed broken. The pattern continued for a week. Lena arrived at 6, cooked whatever Oliver wanted, stayed for dinner. She learned his favorite foods: grilled cheese with the crust cut off, chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs, pancakes with chocolate chips. Simple things. Kid things. But she made them with care, with attention, and Oliver noticed. He started talking to her the way kids do when they trust someone. Stream of consciousness rambling, jumping from topic to topic without warning. He told her about his nightmares, about how he was scared his mom would forget his birthday, about how sometimes he heard his dad crying at night and didn't know what to do. Lena listened. It was the least she could do. Ethan watched from the sidelines, present but not hovering. He worked on his laptop, took calls in his study, occasionally joined them for dinner. He didn't talk much, but Lena caught him watching her sometimes, his expression unreadable. On the 8th day, Ethan was waiting when she arrived, his face grim. "We need to talk." Lena's stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" "Come with me." He led her to his study, closing the door behind them. On his desk was a stack of papers, financial records, receipts, transaction logs. He gestured to them. "Your grandmother's debt. I looked into it." "Why?" "Because something didn't add up." Ethan pulled out a spreadsheet, turning it so she could see. Maria borrowed $300,000 in 1998. Standard commercial loan, 7% interest. She made payments for 20 years, irregular but consistent. By 2018, she should have owed around $200,000, accounting for interest. So Vale Capital reported the debt at $290,000 when she died. $70,000 more than it should have been. He pointed to a series of highlighted entries. They added fees, administrative costs, late charges, processing expenses. All buried in the fine print. All technically legal, but completely predatory. Lena stared at the numbers, her vision blurring. She paid them for 20 years. She paid them $340,000 over 20 years. And she died still owing money because they kept adding charges faster than she could pay them down. The rage came slowly, building like a wave. Lena gripped the edge of the desk, her knuckles white. Your father did this? Yes. He destroyed her, took everything she had and left her with nothing. Yes. And you want me to, what? Forgive you? Is that what this is? Some kind of confessional? Her voice was rising, shaking. You think cooking for your son erases what your family did to mine? No. Ethan met her eyes, and there was something raw there, something honest. But I can try to make it right. He pulled out another document, a check, already signed. The amount made her head spin, $500,000. What is this? Restitution, for what my father took from your grandmother, for the debt that should never have existed. Lena's hands were shaking. I can't take this. Why not? Because it's too much. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The number on that check was more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes. Why are you doing this? Because it's right. Because my father was wrong. And because... Ethan paused, choosing his words carefully. Because when you walked into that kitchen and made soup for my son, you didn't do it for revenge. You did it because a kid was hurting and you knew how to help. That's worth more than money. Lena stared at the check, tears blurring her vision. My daughter can get the treatment she needs, the transplant, everything. Ethan pushed the check across the desk. Take it, please. She picked it up with trembling hands. The paper felt impossibly light for something that could change her entire world. I don't understand you. Join the club. Despite everything, she laughed. It came out broken, halfway to a sob. My grandmother would have hated this. Probably. She would have said it was too easy, that you were trying to buy forgiveness. Maybe I am. Lena folded the check carefully, sliding it into her purse. I'm still going to cook for Oliver. The contract stands. You don't have to. You're paid up now. I want to. She met his eyes. He's a good kid. He deserves better than takeout every night. Something shifted in Ethan's expression. Gratitude, maybe, or relief. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm about to spend a fortune of your money on groceries. That became the new normal. Lena came 3 times a week, sometimes 4. She filled the kitchen with the smells of cooking, garlic and onions, baking bread, simmering sauce. Oliver thrived, putting on weight, laughing more. Even Ethan seemed lighter, the permanent tension in his shoulders easing. Mia got her transplant. The donor was a match, not perfect, but close enough. Dr. Patel scheduled the surgery for the end of the month, his careful optimism giving Lena something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. She told Oliver about Mia one evening while they were making cookies. He'd asked why she sometimes left early, why she checked her phone so much. I have a daughter. She's been sick, but she's getting better. Oliver's eyes went wide. How old is she? 7. That's older than me? Does she like cookies? She loves them. Can I meet her? Lena glanced at Ethan, who was reading on the couch. He looked up, nodding slightly. Maybe, when she's feeling better. Does she like dinosaurs? I don't think she's ever had an opinion on dinosaurs. Oliver looked scandalized. Everyone should have an opinion on dinosaurs. Velociraptors are the best. That's a fact. Lena laughed. I'll let her know. 2 weeks later, Mia was strong enough for visitors. Lena arranged for them to meet at the park. Neutral ground, nothing too intense. She was nervous, though she couldn't say why. Oliver was just a kid. Mia was just a kid. What was the worst that could happen? They hit it off immediately. Within 5 minutes, they were racing to the swings, arguing about who could go higher. Within 10, they were building an elaborate fortress in the sandbox, complete with a moat and defense towers. Lena and Ethan sat on a bench nearby, watching. He needed this, Ethan said quietly. A friend his age. So did she. They sat in comfortable silence, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. For the first time in months, maybe years, Lena felt something like peace. It didn't last. That night, her phone rang at 2 a.m. Gerald's voice was tight with panic. "Miss Hart, you need to come to the restaurant, now." "What? Why?" "Just come. Please." She took a cab, the city streaking past in blurs of light. Aurelius was dark except for one light in the back. Gerald met her at the door, his face pale. "What's going on?" "It's Chef Rousseau. He's accusing you of theft." The world tilted. "What?" "He filed a police report. Says you've been stealing ingredients, selling them on the side. He has receipts, transaction logs, everything." Lena's mind raced. "That's impossible. I haven't stolen anything." "I know. But he's built a case, says he has proof." "Why would he do this?" Gerald's expression was pained. "Because Mr. Vale embarrassed him. Because you embarrassed him. Because men like Rousseau don't forgive being shown up by a waitress." The implications crashed down. A theft charge would destroy her. No restaurant would hire her. She'd lose custody of Mia. Who would let a thief raise a sick child? The transplant, the treatment, everything, gone. "I need to talk to Ethan." "He's on his way." Ethan arrived 20 minutes later, still in sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair disheveled. He listened to Gerald's explanation, his expression growing darker with each word. "Where's Rousseau now?" "At the precinct, filing the report." "And the proof?" Gerald pulled out a folder. Inside were invoices showing expensive ingredients, truffles, saffron, aged beef, purchased, and never used. All signed with Lena's employee number. "I didn't sign these," Lena said. "I've never even had access to the ordering system." "Someone forged them," Ethan said flatly. "Someone with admin access." Gerald paled. "You think?" "I think Rousseau is setting her up. And I think he's about to find out what happens when you come after people I protect." Ethan made 3 phone calls. The first to his lawyer, the second to the head of the NYPD's fraud division, the third to someone he just called Alex, who apparently owed him a favor. By morning, the case against Lena was falling apart. The invoices had been digitally altered, the signatures forged. Security footage showed Rousseau in the office alone, accessing the ordering system. And Alex, whoever he was, had found evidence that Rousseau had been skimming from the restaurant for months, selling premium ingredients and pocketing the cash. The theft accusation died before it could breathe. But the damage was done. News of the scandal spread through the restaurant community like wildfire. Waitress frames chef. Billionaire gets involved. The headlines were brutal, speculating about affairs and conspiracies. Lena's phone exploded with calls from reporters, from people she hadn't spoken to in years, from strangers demanding her side of the story. She ignored them all, focusing on Mia, on getting through each day. But something had shifted. The quiet life she'd built was crumbling, exposed to a light she'd never wanted. And Ethan was at the center of it, pulling strings, making calls, fixing problems with the casual efficiency of someone used to controlling everything. She should have been grateful. She was grateful. But she was also terrified, because men like Ethan Vale didn't fix things without expecting something in return. And sooner or later, the bill always came due. Rousseau didn't go quietly. He hired a PR firm, gave interviews to food blogs and restaurant magazines, painted himself as the victim of a vindictive billionaire and his pet waitress. The narrative stuck in certain circles. The old guard who saw Ethan's interference as an outsider disrupting their world, who believed in hierarchy and tradition above all else. But the evidence was too damning. Within 2 weeks, Rousseau lost his position at Aurelius and his reputation along with it. Other restaurants distanced themselves, not wanting the taint of scandal. His lawyer advised settling quietly, but Rousseau wanted blood. He announced a public cooking competition, him versus Lena. Winner take all. Reputation, respect, the truth. The challenge went viral. Food Network picked it up, turned it into an event. Live audience, celebrity judges, the whole spectacle. Ethan's lawyers tried to shut it down, threatened lawsuits, but Lena stopped them. "I'll do it," she said. They were in Ethan's study, late afternoon sun slanting through the windows. He'd been on the phone with his legal team for an hour, and his frustration was palpable. "Absolutely not." "Why?" "Because Rousseau is a professional chef with 3 Michelin stars. Because this is a trap designed to humiliate you. Because—" He stopped, running a hand through his hair. "Because you don't owe him anything." "I owe myself." Lena met his eyes. "Everyone thinks I'm some charity case you're protecting, that I can't fight my own battles. This is my chance to prove otherwise. By cooking against one of the best chefs in New York? By showing what I can do. On my terms." She leaned forward. "My whole life, people have dismissed me. The quiet waitress, the single mom, the girl who never amounted to anything. I'm tired of being invisible." Ethan studied her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he sighed. "You're not going to change your mind, are you?" "No." "Then I'm helping. You want to do this on your terms? Fine. But you're not going in unprepared." He made calls. Within a day, Lena had access to Ethan's private test kitchen in the basement of one of his properties, a professional-grade space with equipment she'd only dreamed of using. He hired a former competition coach, a woman named Rosa, who'd trained winners on cooking shows, to help Lena prepare. Rosa was in her 60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed with a directness that bordered on brutal. She watched Lena cook for an hour without saying a word, then delivered her assessment. "You're good. Better than good. But you cook like someone who's afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of being seen. Every dish you make, you're hiding behind technique, making it perfect so no one can criticize. But perfect is boring. Perfect doesn't tell a story." Rosa tapped the counter. "You want to beat Rousseau? Stop cooking his food. Cook yours." "I don't know what that means." "Yes, you do. You just don't want to admit it." For 3 weeks, Lena worked in that test kitchen every spare moment. Between visits to Mia at the hospital, between cooking for Oliver, she practiced. Not fancy techniques or complicated recipes. She cooked the food her grandmother had taught her, simple, honest, built from cheap ingredients and love. Rosa pushed her relentlessly. "Slower on the knife work. You're rushing. Why are you rushing?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do. You think if you're fast enough, you can get through this without feeling it. But cooking isn't about speed. It's about presence." Rosa pointed at the vegetables Lena was chopping. "Those carrots, what do they need?" "I don't—" "Stop thinking. Feel." It sounded like nonsense, like some cooking show platitude. But Lena tried. She slowed down, focused on the weight of the knife, the resistance of the carrot, the smell of earth and sweetness. And something shifted. The movements became meditative instead of mechanical. The food started tasting different, better. Oliver visited sometimes, sitting on a stool and asking questions. "Why do you put salt in the water before it boils?" "Because it raises the boiling point, makes the water hotter." "Why does hotter matter?" "Because pasta needs to cook fast and firm. If the water's not hot enough, it gets mushy." "Oh." Oliver absorbed this with the seriousness he brought to everything. "Can I try cutting something?" Lena handed him a butter knife and a banana. He worked on it with fierce concentration, tongue poking out between his teeth. When he finished, the slices were uneven and slightly mangled, but he looked so proud that Lena's chest ached. "Perfect," she said. "Really?" "Really. Now let's make banana bread." Ethan watched from the doorway, silent. Lena caught his eye once, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. They were both trying to build something out of broken pieces, both hoping it would be enough. Mia's surgery was scheduled for the week before the competition. The timing was terrible, but there was no postponing it. The donor had a narrow window, and Dr. Patel said they had to move now or risk losing the match. Lena spent the night before the surgery lying next to Mia in the hospital bed, humming old songs her grandmother used to sing. Mia was scared but trying not to show it, her small hand gripping Lena's. "What if it doesn't work?" she whispered. "It's going to work." "But what if—" "Then we'll figure it out, like we always do." Lena kissed her forehead. "You're the bravest person I know. You know that?" "Braver than you?" "Way braver." Mia smiled, her eyes drifting closed. "Will you make me soup when I wake up?" "The best soup you've ever had." The surgery took 8 hours. Lena sat in the waiting room watching the clock, her mind going to terrible places. Ethan showed up halfway through, carrying coffee and a bag of bagels she couldn't eat. "You didn't have to come," she said. "I wanted to." He sat beside her, not touching but close enough that she could feel his presence. "Oliver wanted to come too, but I thought the hospital might be too much." "Yeah." They sat in silence, the fluorescent lights humming overhead. Other families waited nearby, their own vigils playing out in whispered conversations and nervous pacing. "My mother died in a hospital," Ethan said suddenly. "Cancer. I was 17, sat in a room like this for 3 days while she just faded." Lena looked at him. His face was blank, controlled, but his hands were clenched tight in his lap. "Is that why you helped me? With the money for Mia?" "Maybe. Probably." He exhaled slowly. "I couldn't help my mother. The money came too late. My father was still building the company, still clawing his way up. By the time we could afford the best doctors, the best treatments, it didn't matter. She was already gone." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was a long time ago." He looked at her. "But when I saw your daughter's file, saw what you were up against, I don't know. It felt like a second chance to do something right." Before Lena could respond, Dr. Patel appeared, still in his scrubs. His expression was carefully neutral, and Lena's heart stopped. "The surgery went well," he said, and the world restarted. "We won't know for a few days if the transplant takes, but so far, everything looks good." Lena's knees went weak. Ethan's hand found her elbow, steadying her. "Can I see her?" "She's in recovery. Another hour, then you can sit with her." After Dr. Patel left, Lena turned to Ethan and did something she'd never done before. She hugged him, just wrapped her arms around him and held on, her face pressed into his shoulder. He went still for a moment, then his arms came around her, careful and tentative. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." They stayed like that for a moment longer than necessary, and when they pulled apart, something had shifted. Some invisible wall had come down, leaving them exposed. Mia woke up groggy and nauseous, but she was alive. Lena spent the next 3 days in the hospital, sleeping in a chair beside her bed, watching her daughter's color slowly return. Oliver visited with a stuffed dinosaur that was nearly as big as Mia, making her laugh despite the pain. "Velociraptors are the best," he informed her solemnly. "I like the long neck ones," Mia said, her voice hoarse. Oliver looked personally offended. "Brontosaurus? They're basically just necks with legs. They're elegant. They're boring." Lena and Ethan exchanged glances, both fighting smiles. Let them argue about dinosaurs. Let them be kids. A week before the competition, Gerald called. "Miss Hart, we have a problem." "What now?" "Someone leaked the terms of your contract with Mr. Vale. The $50,000 a month. The media's calling it hush money." Lena's stomach dropped. "That's not what it is." "I know, but the narrative's already spreading. They're saying Mr. Vale paid you to fabricate the theft charges against Rousseau, that the whole thing was orchestrated." "That's insane." "Insane or not, it's getting traction. Rousseau's team is running with it. They're calling for the competition to be canceled, saying it's rigged." Lena hung up and immediately called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. "You heard? How bad is it?" "Bad. My PR team is scrambling, but this kind of story, it has legs. People want to believe the worst about billionaires." "Can we prove it's not true?" "We can try. But Lena, the contract does look suspicious from the outside. $50,000 a month to cook for a 5-year-old? Most people will think there's more to it. There isn't. I know that. You know that. But the public doesn't care about truth. They care about narrative." Lena pressed her forehead against the cool hospital window, watching the city below. "So what do? We fight back, or we walk away." "I'm not walking away." "Then we fight." Ethan hired a crisis management firm. They scheduled interviews, planted counter-stories, did everything they could to control the damage. But the speculation kept growing. Tabloids ran photos of Lena and Ethan together, captioned with innuendo and assumption. Someone dug up Sarah's departure, painted Lena as a homewrecker. The stress was crushing. Lena stopped sleeping, her nerves frayed to nothing. Mia was getting stronger, but the headlines made everything harder. Kids at school whispered. Parents pulled their children away during pickup. Mrs. Kim stopped making eye contact. The night before the competition, Lena almost backed out. She stood in the test kitchen, staring at the ingredients she'd assembled, and felt nothing but exhaustion. What was she trying to prove? That she could cook? Everyone already knew that. That she wasn't afraid? She was terrified. Her phone rang. Oliver's number. Hello? Lena? His voice was small. Can you come over? What's wrong? I had a bad dream about Mommy, and I just need you to come over. Oliver, it's late. Can you put your dad on? He's not here. He's at some meeting. Mrs. Chen is here, but she's asleep, and I don't want to wake her up. Lena checked the time, 11 p.m. She should tell him to go back to bed, to be brave, to wait for his father. Instead, she grabbed her coat. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Marcus was off duty, so she took the subway, emerging into the cold Manhattan night. The penthouse doorman recognized her and waved her through. Upstairs, she found Oliver sitting in the hallway outside his room, knees pulled to his chest. Hey, buddy. He looked up and his face crumpled. I thought you weren't coming. I said I would, didn't I? She sat beside him on the floor. Tell me about the dream. Mommy came back, but she didn't remember me. She looked right at me and didn't know who I was. His voice cracked. And I kept saying, I'm Oliver. I'm your son. But she just walked away. Lena pulled him close, letting him cry into her shoulder. Kids weren't supposed to carry this kind of pain. No one was. Your mom remembers you, she said quietly. That's not something people forget. Then why doesn't she visit? I don't know. Grown-ups are complicated. Sometimes they make choices that hurt, even when they don't mean to. Do you think she'll ever come back? Lena wanted to lie, to promise it would all work out, but Oliver deserved better than empty comfort. I don't know, maybe not. But you know what? What? You're going to be okay either way, because you're strong and smart and kind, because you have people who love you, because you're more than just the kid whose mom left. Oliver wiped his eyes. You sound like my dad. Your dad's a smart guy. Sometimes. Other times he's kind of dumb. Oliver looked at her seriously. He likes you. Likes you. Lena's breath caught. Oliver, it's okay. I like you too. I think you should be friends, or maybe more than friends. I don't really know how that works. It's complicated. Everything's complicated. He rested his head on her shoulder. Can you stay until I fall asleep? Yeah, I can stay. She tucked him into bed, reading from the Dragon Book until his breathing evened out. When she emerged from his room, Ethan was standing in the hallway, still in his suit, looking exhausted. Mrs. Chen called me. Said Oliver asked for you. He had a nightmare. I didn't think you'd mind. I don't. Ethan loosened his tie. Thank you for coming. They stood there in the dim hallway, the apartment silent around them. Lena should leave. Should go home, get some sleep before tomorrow. But her feet wouldn't move. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Okay. Why are you really doing this, the competition? You've got the money for Mia's treatment. You could walk away, let Rousseau have his tantrum. Why put yourself through this? Lena considered the question, searching for the truth. Because my whole life I've been small, quiet, the person who serves other people's food and cleans other people's messes. And I'm tired of it. Just tired. You're not small. To most people, I am. Not to Oliver, not to Mia. He paused. Not to me. The air between them shifted, charged with something unspoken. Lena's heart was beating too fast. I should go, she said. Stay. Ethan, not like that. Just stay. Have a drink. Sit on the balcony. You look like you need a break from the world. He was right. She did. So she followed him to the balcony, accepted a glass of wine she barely touched, and sat looking out at the city. They didn't talk much. Didn't need to. The silence was enough. At some point, Lena's head dipped, exhaustion winning. She jerked awake to find herself leaning against Ethan's shoulder, his arm around her. The position was intimate, unexpected, and she should pull away. But she didn't. She just sat there, letting herself be held, letting someone else carry the weight for once. You're going to win tomorrow, Ethan said quietly. You know that, right? I don't know anything. I do. I've seen you cook. Seen what you put into every dish. Rousseau's got technique and ego. You've got heart. Heart wins. That's sentimental nonsense. Maybe. But it's true. He looked down at her. Whatever happens tomorrow, you're not alone in this. Remember that. Lena wanted to argue, to maintain her independence, to prove she didn't need anyone. But the truth was simpler and harder to admit. She was tired of being alone, tired of fighting every battle solo. Having someone in her corner felt dangerous and necessary all at once. "Thank you," she said. "Stop thanking me. We're past that." "Then what are we?" "I don't know, but we're something." The competition venue was enormous, a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, outfitted with 2 professional kitchens facing each other across a center aisle. Bleachers rose on either side, packed with spectators. Cameras everywhere, crew members running cables and adjusting lights. It looked like a gladiatorial arena, and in a way, it was. Lena stood backstage, her hands shaking. Rosa appeared beside her, calm as ever. "Breathe. I can't do this." "Yes, you can. You've been doing it for 3 weeks. That was practice. This is the same thing with an audience. The food doesn't know it's being watched. Neither should you." Rosa gripped her shoulders. "What are you making today?" "What my grandmother taught me." "Then cook for her. Cook for Mia. Cook for that little boy who asked you to make soup in a place where you weren't supposed to belong. But don't cook for them." Rosa gestured at the crowd. "They don't matter." A production assistant appeared. "5 minutes, Miss Hart." Lena nodded, her throat tight. Rosa squeezed her hand once, then disappeared. Alone in the dim backstage, Lena closed her eyes and thought about her grandmother. About standing on a stool in that tiny kitchen, learning to dice onions without crying, to taste as she cooked, to trust her instincts. "Food is honest," Maria used to say. "It doesn't lie. If you put fear into it, people taste fear. If you put love into it, they taste love." Lena opened her eyes. Put love into it. She could do that. The stage manager gestured her forward. She walked out into the lights and noise, the crowd roaring. Across the aisle, Rousseau stood at his station, looking smug and confident in pristine whites. The host, a celebrity chef Lena vaguely recognized, introduced them with dramatic flair. On one side, we have Chef Philippe Rousseau, 3 Michelin stars, trained in Lyon, a legend of modern cuisine. On the other, Lena Hart, a waitress with no formal training but a gift that's caught the attention of New York's elite. Today, they'll compete in a battle that's about more than food. It's about truth, reputation, and what it really means to be a chef. The crowd ate it up. Lena scanned the audience, finding Ethan and Oliver in the front row. Oliver waved enthusiastically. Beside them, in a wheelchair with a blanket over her lap, was Mia. She looked pale and thin, but she was there. She'd insisted, and the doctors had reluctantly agreed. Seeing her daughter's face gave Lena strength. The rules were simple. 1 hour. Create a dish using only what was in the provided pantry. Basic ingredients, nothing fancy. The judges would score on taste, creativity, and technique. "Chefs, you have 60 minutes. Your time starts now." Rousseau moved immediately, grabbing ingredients with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Lena took a breath, then approached the pantry. She scanned the shelves, vegetables, dried goods, canned items, basic proteins. Nothing expensive, nothing exotic. She picked up a can of chickpeas, felt its weight, and knew exactly what she was going to make. Her grandmother's soup, the one that had started everything, but elevated, refined, turned into something more. She grabbed vegetables, stock, spices, letting instinct guide her. Around her, the crowd murmured, cameras zooming in. Rousseau was making something elaborate. She could see him working on a reduction, preparing a protein with precise cuts. Impressive. Professional. Exactly what everyone expected. Lena started with the stock, building flavor layer by layer. Onions and garlic browned until they sang. Celery and carrots cut with care. Tomatoes for acid, chickpeas for body. And then the spices, cumin and coriander, a touch of smoked paprika, the star anise that made it hers. 30 minutes in, Rousseau made his move. He walked past Lena's station, paused, and spoke just loud enough for the cameras to catch. "Canned chickpeas? How pedestrian." The crowd reacted, some laughing. Lena kept her eyes on her work. I suppose when one lacks training, one makes do with shortcuts. He smiled, playing to the audience. Charming, really, like watching a child play chef. Lena's jaw clenched. Don't engage, don't give him what he wants. But the anger burned hot and bright. Rose's voice in her head, the food doesn't know it's being watched. She ladled a spoonful of soup, tasting. It needed something. She added lemon juice, a drizzle of good olive oil, a handful of fresh herbs. Tasted again. Better. Almost there. 15 minutes left. Rousseau was plating. His dish looked like art, all precise lines and calculated composition. The judges would love it. It was exactly what fine dining was supposed to be. Lena looked at her soup. Simple, honest. The kind of food that didn't photograph well but tasted like home. She almost gave up. Almost dumped it and started something else. Something that would compete with Rousseau's technical wizardry. But then she saw Mia in the crowd, leaning forward in her wheelchair, watching with wide eyes. Cook for her. Lena grabbed a bowl, plain white, nothing fancy, and ladled the soup carefully. A drizzle of olive oil on top, a sprinkle of fresh parsley, a wedge of lemon on the side. That was it. No garnish, no architectural nonsense, just soup. Time, the host called. Step away from your dishes. The judges approached. 3 of them, all heavy hitters in the food world. They started with Rousseau. He described his dish with the confidence of someone who already knew he'd won. Seared duck breast with cherry reduction, parsnip puree, microgreens. The judges tasted, nodded, murmured appreciatively. Then they came to Lena. What did you make? The first judge asked. Chickpea soup. Someone in the audience laughed. Lena ignored them. Just soup? The second judge said. Yes. They exchanged glances. Lena's heart sank. This was a mistake. She'd walked into a knife fight with a spoon, but they tasted anyway. All 3 judges dipping spoons into the simple bowl, bringing it to their lips. The first judge closed her eyes. The second went very still. The third took another spoonful, then another. This is, the first judge started, then stopped. Where did you learn to make this? My grandmother taught me. It's extraordinary, the depth of flavor, the balance. The judge looked at her colleagues. I haven't tasted anything this honest in years. The second judge nodded. It's not complicated, but it doesn't need to be. Every element serves the whole. Nothing wasted, nothing showy. The third judge was still eating. This tastes like memory, like someone's kitchen on a Sunday afternoon. He looked at Lena. How did you do that? I just cooked what I know. They deliberated for what felt like hours, but was probably 5 minutes. The host built tension, the crowd buzzing. Rousseau stood with his arms crossed, confident. Lena's hands were shaking. Finally, the judges returned. The first one spoke. This was a difficult decision. Chef Rousseau's dish was technically flawless, the kind of cooking that wins awards and fills restaurants. But Miss Hart's soup, she paused. It reminded us why we fell in love with food in the first place. Not because it's complicated or expensive, but because it tells a story. Because it connects us to something bigger than ourselves. The crowd went silent. The winner is Lena Hart. The roar was deafening. Lena stood frozen, unable to process. She'd won. Against a Michelin-starred chef, against the odds, against everyone who'd ever dismissed her, she'd won. Rousseau's face went purple. This is absurd. A can of chickpeas beats my duck? This is a farce. The judges have spoken, the host said firmly. She cheated. This entire competition was rigged from the start. Rousseau pointed at Ethan. He probably paid them off, just like he pays her. The accusation hung in the air. Camera swiveled to Ethan, who stood slowly. When he spoke, his voice carried across the warehouse. Chef Rousseau, I've tolerated your tantrums and your lies because I believed in letting the truth speak for itself. But since you seem determined to make this personal, let's talk about rigging. He pulled out his phone, tapping a few times. Should we discuss the invoices you forged, the ingredients you stole, the health violations you covered up? Rousseau paled. You can't prove. I can prove all of it. I've had investigators digging through Aurelius's records for weeks. Want me to keep going? Or would you prefer to accept your loss with what little dignity you have left? The chef's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Finally, he ripped off his apron and stormed out, the crowd partying like water. The host tried to salvage the moment, but the damage was done. The competition was over, but the aftermath was just beginning. Lena stood in the center of it all, holding her bowl of soup, wondering what she'd won and what it would cost. The celebration lasted about 10 minutes before the threat started. Lena was backstage with Mia and Oliver when her phone exploded with messages. Most were congratulations from people she barely knew, but buried in the noise were 3 texts from an unknown number. "You made a mistake today. Watch your daughter. This isn't over." Her blood went cold. She showed Ethan, who immediately called his head of security, a former Secret Service agent named Marcus Chen, no relation to the nanny. Within an hour, Lena's apartment building had cameras installed, a security detail assigned to Mia's school, and an alarm system that could probably stop a small army. "This is insane," Lena said, watching 2 men in dark suits check the stairwell outside her door. "It's just cooking. It stopped being just cooking the moment you embarrassed Rousseau on national television," Ethan said. He was pacing her tiny living room, which somehow looked even smaller with him in it. Men like him don't forgive humiliation, especially not from someone they consider beneath them. "So what am I supposed to do? Live in fear?" "You're supposed to be smart. Let me protect you." "I've been protecting myself my whole life. And look where that got you. 4 flights up in Astoria with a sick kid and no backup plan." The words came out harsher than he'd meant. Ethan stopped, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." Lena's voice was quiet but firm. "You think I need saving, that I'm some damsel who can't handle the real world. That's not what I think." "Then what do you think?" He looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment the careful mask slipped. "I think you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I think you've survived things that would have broken most people, and I think that shouldn't mean you have to keep surviving alone." The honesty hit harder than anger would have. Lena sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. "I don't know how to let people help me." "I noticed." Ethan sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. "But maybe you could try. Just this once." Before she could answer, Mia appeared from the bedroom, dragging her blanket. The hospital had cleared her for limited activity, but she tired easily, her body still recovering from the transplant. "Mama, I'm hungry." "I'll make you something, baby." "Can we have soup, like the one you made at the competition?" Lena smiled despite everything. "Sure, let me see what we have." The kitchen inventory was depressing. A few canned goods, half a box of pasta, eggs that were probably expired. She'd been so focused on the competition and Mia's recovery that basic things like grocery shopping had fallen through the cracks. Ethan appeared beside her, surveying the nearly empty cabinets. "This is unacceptable." "I've been busy." "I'm having food delivered. Give me a list of what you need." "Ethan, it's not charity. It's common sense. You can't cook if you don't have ingredients." He pulled out his phone. "What do you want?" She wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her independence, prove she could handle this herself. But Mia was hungry, and pride didn't fill stomachs. So she dictated a list. Basics mostly, nothing extravagant. And Ethan ordered it all from some premium delivery service that promised arrival within the hour. While they waited, Lena made do with what she had. Pasta with butter and cheese, simple but filling. Mia ate half and fell asleep on the couch, her small body curled around the stuffed dinosaur Oliver had given her. Oliver himself was exploring the apartment with the unselfconscious curiosity of a 5-year-old, asking questions about everything. "Why do you have a picture of a tree on your wall?" "My grandmother painted it. That was the tree in her backyard." "Did she live here?" "No, she lived in a different building, but when she died, I took some of her things." Oliver studied the painting with serious concentration. "My mommy took all her things when she left. There's nothing of hers in our apartment anymore." The casual devastation in his voice made Lena's chest ache. "Maybe your dad wanted a fresh start." "Maybe." Oliver moved to the window, pressing his nose against the glass. "I can see so many buildings from here. Do you think people in those buildings are happy?" "Some of them, probably." "Are you happy?" The question was so direct, so earnest, that Lena had to think about her answer. "I'm trying to be." "That's what my dad always says." Oliver turned to look at her. "But I don't think trying is the same as being." From the mouths of children. Ethan had joined them, and he squeezed Oliver's shoulder. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just don't listen. That night, after the groceries arrived and Ethan and Oliver left, Lena locked every door and window, checked on Mia 3 times, and lay awake staring at the ceiling. The threats kept replaying in her head. Watch your daughter. She'd fought so hard to keep Mia safe, to keep her alive. The idea that winning a cooking competition could put her in danger felt absurd and terrifying. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Security team is in position. You're safe. Try to sleep. She typed back, Thank you. His response came immediately. Stop thanking me. Despite everything, she smiled. The next morning brought new problems. Gerald called just after 7, his voice tight with stress. Miss Hart, we need to talk about the restaurant. What about it? Rousseau's lawyers are filing suit. They're claiming Mr. Vale violated the terms of his employment contract by interfering with kitchen operations. They want damages, $5 million, and reinstatement. Lena sat up, the room spinning. Can they do that? They can try. It's a nuisance suit, most likely, but it ties everything up in litigation, keeps the story in the news. And there's more. Of course there is. The restaurant manager, David Lynch, he's resigned. Says he can't work under the current circumstances, whatever that means. Half the kitchen staff went with him. Where does that leave Aurelius? Barely functional. We're limping along with a skeleton crew. Mr. Vale is considering shutting it down temporarily until things settle. After Gerald hung up, Lena called Ethan. He answered on the second ring, sounding like he'd been awake for hours. You heard about Lynch? Just now. What aren't you telling me? A pause. I had him investigated too. Found some irregularities in the books. Nothing concrete enough to prosecute, but enough to make him nervous. I think he jumped before I could push. So he was stealing, or covering for someone who was. The financial records are a mess. It'll take weeks to untangle. Lena leaned against the kitchen counter, feeling the weight of everything pressing down. This is getting out of control. I know, but we're not backing down. Rousseau wants a fight? He's got one. I didn't sign up for a war. You signed up the moment you walked into that kitchen and made soup for my son. His voice softened. You became part of this whether you meant to or not. She wanted to argue, but he was right. Everything had changed that rainy night. Some chain of events had been set in motion, and now they were all just trying to keep up. The lawsuit made headlines. Every food blog and news outlet picked it up, dissecting the details, taking sides. Team Rousseau painted him as a victim of corporate overreach, a passionate artist destroyed by ruthless capitalism. Team Lena cast her as the underdog hero, the single mom who'd stood up to the establishment. The truth, as usual, was more complicated than either narrative. Lena tried to ignore the noise, focusing instead on what mattered. Mia's recovery and cooking for Oliver. But everywhere she went, people recognized her. The waitress who'd won, the woman dating the billionaire, the homewrecker who'd destroyed a legendary chef. None of it was true. All of it stuck. Mia's school called on Tuesday. The principal, a stern woman named Mrs. Patterson, requested a meeting. Lena went with a knot in her stomach, knowing it couldn't be good news. Mrs. Patterson got straight to the point. We've had complaints from other parents about the media attention surrounding your family. Some feel it's disruptive to the learning environment. Mia's done nothing wrong. I'm not suggesting she has. But the security detail, the photographers outside, it's creating an atmosphere that concerns some families. Are you asking me to pull my daughter out of school? I'm asking you to consider whether this is the best environment for her right now, given her health needs and the current situation. Lena's hands clenched in her lap. My daughter just had a bone marrow transplant. She needs stability, routine, normalcy. Taking her out of school removes all of that. I understand, but do you? Do you understand what it's like to watch your child fight for her life? To finally see her getting better and then have people tell you she's the problem? Lena stood, her voice shaking with fury. Mia stays. If other parents have an issue, they can pull their kids, but mine stays. She walked out before Mrs. Patterson could respond, her hands trembling, tears threatening to spill. In the parking lot, she sat in her car and let them come. All the fear and frustration and rage she'd been holding back. It wasn't fair. None of this was fair. Her phone rang. Ethan. Hey, she managed, her voice thick. What's wrong? How do you always know? I'm paying attention. Talk to me. So she did. Told him about the meeting, about Mrs. Patterson's thinly veiled suggestion that Mia was a disruption, about feeling like everything she touched turned to chaos. She's not leaving that school, Ethan said flatly. I'll call the board of directors. You can't just throw money at every problem. Watch me. That school's endowment fund could use a generous donation from a concerned parent whose son happens to attend there. Oliver goes to private school in Manhattan. Mia's in public school in Astoria. Not anymore. I'm enrolling Oliver at Mia's school tomorrow. Ethan, that's crazy. Maybe. But it solves the problem. Once I'm a parent there too, once I make it clear that the media attention follows me, not you, they'll back off. And if they don't, my lawyers will explain the concept of discrimination. You'd really move Oliver schools for this? He needs friends his age. Mia's his friend. Makes sense to me. His voice softened. Let me help, Lena. Please. She wanted to say no. Wanted to fight this battle herself, prove she didn't need rescuing, but she was so tired of fighting. Okay. Okay? Yes. Okay. Do whatever you're going to do. She could hear his smile through the phone. That's my girl. The words sent warmth through her chest, dangerous and welcome all at once. True to his word, Ethan enrolled Oliver the next day. The paperwork somehow processed overnight. Money talked, even in public school systems. Mrs. Patterson's tune changed immediately when she realized a Vale family donation was coming. Suddenly, the media attention was manageable, the security detail acceptable. Mia a valued member of the school community. Oliver was thrilled. He and Mia became inseparable, sitting together at lunch, playing at recess, defending each other with the fierce loyalty of children. Other kids started coming around too, drawn by Oliver's easy friendliness and Mia's quiet kindness. Within a week, it was like they'd always been there together. Lena watched them on the playground one afternoon, her heart doing complicated things. This was what normal looked like, what childhood should be. And it was happening because Ethan had decided to make it happen, consequences be damned. They're good together, a voice said beside her. She turned to find a woman about her age, blonde and polished in expensive athleisure. Sorry? Oliver and Mia. They balance each other out. He's all energy. She's all thoughtfulness. The woman extended her hand. I'm Rachel. My daughter Emma is in their class. Lena, I know who you are. Everyone does. Rachel's smile was kind, not judgmental. For what it's worth, I think what you did was amazing. Taking on that chef, winning with chickpea soup. My husband laughed when he saw it on the news, but in a good way, said it reminded him why he fell in love with cooking in the first place. Your husband cooks? Used to, before law school and 80-hour work weeks killed his creativity. Rachel watched the kids. Maybe that's what happens when you build a life around ambition instead of joy. You forget what matters. The words hit closer than Rachel probably knew. Lena thought about Ethan, about the cold penthouse and the endless work calls, about a man who'd built an empire and lost his wife in the process. Do you think people can change? Lena asked. Find their way back to joy? Rachel considered this. I think some can, if they're willing to let go of control long enough to remember what they're controlling for. That evening, Lena cooked dinner at the penthouse, a simple roast chicken with vegetables. Oliver set the table without being asked, chattering about his day. Ethan arrived late, apologizing, his tie loosened and exhaustion written across his face. Bad day? Lena asked. The usual, fires to put out, deals falling apart, people demanding impossible things. He poured himself a drink, then seemed to think better of it and set the glass down. But I'm here now. That's what matters. They ate together, the three of them, conversation flowing easily. Oliver told a rambling story about a science experiment gone wrong. Ethan actually laughed. A real laugh, not the polite business version. And Lena felt something shift in her chest, some wall she'd built starting to crack. After Oliver went to bed, she and Ethan cleaned up together. The domestic normalcy of it struck her, washing dishes side by side, storing leftovers, wiping down counters. It felt like playing house, except the feelings weren't pretend. I got a call from my lawyer today, Ethan said, drying a plate, about the Rousseau lawsuit. And? It's going to trial. They're not settling. Lena's hand stilled in the soapy water. When? 6 months, maybe less. They're pushing for expedited proceedings, trying to keep the pressure on. He set the plate down. This is going to get uglier before it gets better. I know. You'll have to testify. They'll question everything. Your relationship with me, your cooking credentials, your motivations. They'll try to tear you apart. Let them try. Lena pulled the drain plug, watching water spiral away. I've survived worse than some lawyers asking questions. Ethan turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. I need you to understand something. Rousseau isn't just fighting for money or reputation. He's fighting because he's been exposed, because all his dirty secrets came out and he has nothing left to lose. That makes him dangerous. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to prepare you. His grip tightened slightly. Promise me you'll be careful, that you'll let the security team do their job, that you won't take unnecessary risks. I promise. Say it like you mean it. She met his eyes, saw the genuine fear there. This wasn't about control or protection for its own sake. This was about someone who'd already lost people he cared about, terrified of losing more. I promise, she said again, softer. I'll be careful. He pulled her into a hug, sudden and tight. Lena froze for a moment, then let herself lean into it, her face pressed against his shoulder. He smelled like expensive cologne and coffee, and something uniquely him. When they pulled apart, the air between them was charged, heavy with everything unspoken. I should go, Lena said. It's late. Stay. Ethan, not like that. Stay in the guest room. It's late. You're tired, and I'd sleep better knowing you're here, safe. She should say no, should maintain boundaries, keep things professional. But professional had stopped being accurate weeks ago, and they both knew it. Okay, she said, I'll stay. The guest room was bigger than her entire apartment, all clean lines and soft sheets. Lena borrowed one of Ethan's t-shirts to sleep in, the fabric hanging to her knees. She lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what she was doing. A soft knock on the door. You awake? Yeah. Ethan opened the door, silhouetted in the hallway light. Can't sleep either? My brain won't shut off. Same. He hesitated. Can I come in? She nodded. He sat on the edge of the bed, careful to keep distance between them. For a while, neither spoke. Sarah called today, Ethan said finally. First time in 2 months. What did she want? To talk to Oliver, but he was at school, so we talked instead. He rubbed his face. She's engaged to someone she met 6 months ago, moving to Seattle. How do you feel about that? Honestly, relieved. Means she's moving on. Means maybe Oliver can too once he knows she's building a new life. Does it bother you that she's happy? No, I want her to be happy. I just wish... He stopped. I wish I'd made her happy, that I'd been the person she needed instead of the person I thought she wanted. Lena reached out, taking his hand. You can't build a marriage on trying to be someone you're not. Trust me. I tried with Mia's father, pretended I was fine with him coming and going, fine with being a secret, fine with whatever scraps of attention he'd throw my way. It destroyed me. What happened to him? No idea. He left before Mia was born, and I never heard from him again. She doesn't even know his name. His loss? That's what I tell myself on good days. She squeezed his hand. On bad days, I wonder what was so wrong with me that he couldn't stay. Nothing was wrong with you. He was just a coward. Maybe. Or maybe some people aren't built for commitment, for showing up day after day, doing the work. Ethan looked at their joined hands. I'm trying to be better at that. At showing up. I noticed. Is it working? She thought about everything he'd done, the money for Mia's treatment, the security detail, enrolling Oliver in Mia's school, standing beside her through the competition and the lawsuit and all the chaos. Yeah, it's working. He lifted her hand, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. The gesture was tender, almost old-fashioned, and it made her breath catch. I should let you sleep, he said, but he didn't move. Ethan? Yeah? I'm glad you showed up that night, at the restaurant. Me too. He left, closing the door softly. Lena lay in the dark, her hand still warm where he'd kissed it, and wondered when everything had gotten so complicated. The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparations and small domestic moments. Lena cooked, The kids played. Ethan worked. On the surface, it looked almost normal, but underneath, pressure was building. The threats continued, escalating from texts to letters delivered to her apartment, to Ethan's office, even to the school. The security team intercepted most of them, but enough got through to keep everyone on edge. Someone spray-painted "liar" across her apartment building's entrance. A brick came through her living room window at 3 a.m., sending glass everywhere. After the brick, Ethan insisted she and Mia move into the penthouse. Lena resisted at first, but when Mia woke up screaming from nightmares about bad men breaking in, she gave in. Living with Ethan was strange. Intimate. They fell into rhythms, morning coffee together while the kids got ready for school, dinner as a family most nights, quiet evenings after the children went to bed. It felt like playing pretend, except the feelings were real and getting harder to ignore. Gerald called on a Friday with news. The forensic accountants finished their report on Aurelius. You need to see this. He sent over a document that made Lena's head spin. Rousseau and Lynch had been running a scheme for years, overcharging for ingredients, pocketing the difference, falsifying records to hide the theft. The total came to nearly $2 million. This is huge, Lena said. Bigger than huge. This shifts everything. Rousseau isn't just fighting for reputation anymore. He's fighting to stay out of prison. Ethan's lawyers filed the evidence with the court. Within days, the countersuit was dismissed and criminal charges were filed against Rousseau and Lynch. The media frenzy reached new heights, but cornered animals were dangerous, and Rousseau was very, very cornered. It happened on a Tuesday. Mia was at a friend's house for a play date, Oliver at a music lesson. Lena was grocery shopping, her security detail trailing discreetly behind. She'd almost forgotten they were there, had started to relax into the illusion of normalcy. She was reaching for tomatoes when someone grabbed her arm. Rousseau. He looked terrible, unshaven, wild-eyed, his chef's whites replaced with rumpled street clothes. You destroyed me. Lena tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. The security team was moving closer, but not fast enough. Let go! Everything I built, everything I worked for, gone because you decided to play chef. You destroyed yourself. The theft, the lies you and your billionaire boyfriend fabricated. You think I don't know? Think I don't see what this is? People were staring now. Lena's heart hammered. You're hurting me. Good. You should hurt. You should suffer the way I'm suffering. One of the security guards reached them, his voice firm. Sir, let her go. Now. Rousseau's eyes were glassy, unfocused. She took everything from me. Everything. Sir. He released her suddenly, stumbling back. His hand went to his pocket, and for one horrible second, Lena thought he had a weapon. But he just pulled out a folded piece of paper, throwing it at her. This isn't over. You'll pay for what you did. Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd before security could grab him. The paper fluttered to the floor. Another threat, more venom. Lena's hands shook as she picked it up. The security team rushed her home. Ethan met them at the door, his face pale. Are you okay? I'm fine. He just grabbed my arm, said some things. That's not fine. That's assault. Ethan was already on his phone, calling his lawyer, calling the police. Where's Mia? At Emma's house. Still there. She's safe. But no one felt safe anymore. The police filed a report, issued a restraining order, but paper didn't stop obsession. Rousseau had crossed a line, and lines, once crossed, were hard to uncross. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She checked on Mia 3 times, made sure all the doors were locked, jumped at every sound. Around 2 a.m., she gave up and went to the kitchen, thinking tea might help. Ethan was already there, staring out at the city. Can't sleep either? Every time I close my eyes, I see his face. He turned to her, his expression fierce. I'm going to end this. Whatever it takes. You can't control everything. I can try. He moved closer. Lena, I need you to understand something. What I feel for you, it's not about control or protection or fixing things. He stopped, seeming to search for words. Lena's heart was racing. It's what? She whispered. It's everything. You're everything. The confession came out rough, honest. I don't know when it happened. Maybe that first night, watching you make soup for Oliver. Maybe later, watching you fight for your daughter, for yourself. But somewhere along the way, this stopped being about helping someone and became about us Lena finished. Yeah, us. She closed the distance between them, reaching up to cup his face. I'm scared. Me too. This is complicated. Everything worth having is. She kissed him, or he kissed her. Later, neither could say who moved first, but suddenly they were tangled together, months of tension and denial collapsing into this single moment of honesty. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me. Not as someone I'm protecting, not as Oliver's cook, as yours, as mine. Lena thought about all the reasons this was a bad idea. The lawsuit, the media, the difference in their worlds. But she also thought about Oliver's laugh, and Mia's smile, and the way Ethan looked at her like she was something precious. Okay, she said, I'll stay. Outside, the city glittered and hummed, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out in its towers. But inside the penthouse, two people who'd been alone for too long held each other and pretended the world couldn't touch them. They were wrong, of course. The world always found a way in, but for one night, they let themselves believe in something better. Morning came too fast and not fast enough. Lena woke tangled in Ethan's arms, the early light painting his bedroom in shades of gold. For a moment, she let herself just exist there, warm and safe and wanted. Then reality crept back in, bringing all its complications. You're thinking too loud, Ethan murmured against her hair. Someone has to think. Not yet. Give me 5 more minutes of this. She gave him 10, then slipped out of bed. The penthouse was still quiet, the kids asleep in their rooms. Lena made coffee and stood at the window, watching the city wake up. Somewhere out there, Rousseau was plotting his next move. The lawsuit was still pending. The media was still circling. Nothing was actually fixed. But something had shifted. She'd stopped fighting alone. Ethan appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? Everything, nothing, how we tell the kids about this. We tell them the truth, that we care about each other, that we're trying to figure this out together. What if they're not ready? They've been ready longer than we have. Oliver asks me every other day when you're going to be his new mom. Lena turned in his arms. That's a lot of pressure. I know, I'm not asking for that, not yet. I'm just saying the kids see what we've been too scared to admit. He kissed her forehead. We're already a family in every way that matters. The rest is just paperwork. The casual certainty in his voice made her chest tight. You make it sound simple. It is simple. We just keep making it complicated. Oliver burst into the kitchen at that moment, stopping short when he saw them. His eyes went wide. Then a smile spread across his face. I knew it. Knew what? Ethan asked, trying for innocent and failing completely. That you like each other. Mia owes me $5. You bet on us? She said you were too scared to kiss. I said you'd figure it out eventually. Oliver grabbed a juice box from the fridge. Can I be the best man at the wedding? We're not, Lena started. Yet, Oliver finished. But you will. Adults are slow, but they get there. He bounded off toward Mia's room to collect his winnings. Ethan laughed, the sound unguarded and genuine. Well, that went better than expected. Mia took the news with her usual quiet thoughtfulness. She looked at Lena, then at Ethan, then back at Lena. Does this mean we stay here in the big apartment? Do you want to stay here? I like it. My room is bigger. And Oliver's here. She paused. But I miss our old apartment sometimes. It was ours. Lena knelt down to her daughter's level. We can go back whenever you want. This is just different. Not better or worse. Different. Can different be good? Yeah, baby. Different can be really good. Mia hugged her, fierce and tight. Okay, then I like different. The next few weeks settled into a new rhythm. Lena officially moved in, though she kept the Astoria apartment as a backup. Old habits died hard. She took over the penthouse kitchen completely, filling it with the smells and sounds of actual cooking. Ethan worked from home more often, stealing moments between conference calls to watch her work. Gerald called with an update on Aurelius. The staff wants to come back. Most of them, anyway. They're asking if you'd consider running the kitchen. Lena nearly dropped the phone. Me? You. Head chef. Full creative control. Mr. Vales approved the budget. I'm not a chef. I don't have training or credentials or... You have something better. You have heart. And you can cook circles around half the credentialed chefs in this city. Gerald's voice softened. The staff knows it. The customers know it. Maybe it's time you knew it too. She talked it over with Ethan that night. He listened, asked questions, didn't push. What do you want to do? I don't know. It feels too big. What if I fail? What if you succeed? That might be scarier. He took her hand. You spent your whole life being invisible because it was safer, easier. But Lena, you're not invisible anymore. You haven't been since that first night. The only question is whether you're ready to stop hiding. She thought about her grandmother, about Maria Hart, who'd lost everything trying to build something of her own, about the recipes passed down through generations of women who'd cooked in other people's kitchens, made magic from scraps, left no legacy but the food they made and the love they poured into it. I want to try, she said finally. I want to do it my way, but I want to try. Then try. Lena started at Aurelius the following week. The kitchen staff was wary at first. The waitress turned chef, the boss's girlfriend, the woman who'd beaten Rousseau. But she won them over the way she won everyone over, by showing up, working hard, and treating them like humans instead of cogs in a machine. She redesigned the menu around the kind of food she knew, simple, honest, built from good ingredients and care. No foams or gels or architectural nonsense, just food that tasted like something, like memory, like home. The critics hated it at first. Too simple, they said. Too unsophisticated. Where was the innovation, the technique, the art? But the customers kept coming. They filled tables, brought their families, ordered seconds. Word spread, not through food blogs or magazine reviews, but through the oldest advertising there was, people telling other people about something good. 3 months after Lena took over, Aurelius had a 3-week waiting list. 6 months after that, the Times sent a reviewer. The review came out on a Tuesday. Lena read it in the kitchen during the lunch rush, her hands shaking. Hart's cooking isn't revolutionary, it said. It's something rarer, restorative. In a city obsessed with the next trend, she offers the radical act of simplicity. Her vegetable soup tastes like your grandmother's kitchen. Her roast chicken tastes like Sunday dinner. Her apple tart tastes like childhood. This isn't fine dining, it's real dining. And in a world of artificial everything, real is revolutionary. 3 stars. Not a perfect score, but honest, earned. Lena cried in the walk-in cooler for 5 minutes, then got back to work. There were tables to feed, but Rousseau wasn't done. He couldn't let it go. The humiliation, the loss, the fact that everything he'd built had been dismantled by a woman he'd dismissed as beneath him. The criminal charges were pending, his lawyers dragging out every procedural delay they could find. But the court of public opinion had already convicted him, and that was the verdict that mattered most. He showed up at Aurelius on a Saturday night, drunk and belligerent, demanding to see Lena. Security stopped him at the door, but not before he'd caused a scene, shouting about conspiracies and betrayals and revenge. The police arrested him for violating the restraining order. He spent the night in jail, and his lawyers finally convinced him to take a plea deal. 2 years for theft and fraud, eligible for parole after 1. No admission of guilt regarding Lena, but enough consequences to end the public drama. When Gerald called with the news, Lena felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just exhaustion. Is it over? She asked. This part is. There will be appeals, probably. But the criminal case is done. He's done. That night, Ethan took her to the roof of the penthouse building. The city spread out below them, endless and electric. They sat on a bench some previous tenant had left behind, wrapped in a blanket against the autumn chill. You okay? He asked. I thought I'd feel different, like winning would mean something. Winning means you get to keep going, that's all. The rest is just noise. She leaned into him. When did you get wise? I hired good teachers. He kissed the top of her head. I'm proud of you, you know that, right? For what? For everything. For fighting when you had every reason to give up. For building something beautiful out of chaos. For letting me be part of it. You didn't give me much choice. You had a choice every step of the way. You chose to trust me, to let me in. That's not nothing. Lena thought about the night he'd walked into Aurelius, about the soup that had started everything, about all the small moments that had led them here. I'm glad you ordered that soup. Me too. 6 months later, Oliver turned 6. They threw him a party at Aurelius, nothing fancy, just friends and family and too much cake. Mia helped Lena bake it, a chocolate monstrosity with dinosaurs made of frosting. It was lopsided and imperfect, and Oliver loved it. Sarah came. It was the first time she'd visited since moving to Seattle, and the reunion was awkward, painful in places. But she hugged Oliver for a long time, and he hugged her back, and when they pulled apart, something had loosened in his face. Some knot of worry had unraveled. She pulled Lena aside later, while the kids destroyed the piñata Ethan had insisted on. Thank you. For what? For loving my son. For being what I couldn't be. Sarah's eyes were wet. I see how he looks at you like you're safe. I never gave him that. You gave him life. That's not nothing. It's not enough, though, and I have to live with that. She wiped her eyes. But I'm grateful he has you, that he has this. She gestured at the party, at Ethan watching the kids with a goofy smile, at the warmth and chaos and mess of it all. Lena didn't know what to say, so she just squeezed Sarah's hand. Some things didn't need words. A year after taking over Aurelius, Lena got a call from a documentary filmmaker. They wanted to do a piece on her, the waitress who became a chef, who fought back against corruption, who built something from nothing. What's the angle? Lena asked, suspicious. No angle, just your story. How you did it. What you learned. She almost said no. Didn't want the attention, the exposure. But then she thought about all the other women working dead-end jobs, raising kids alone, convinced they were too old or too unqualified or too invisible to change their lives. She said yes. The documentary took 3 months to film. They followed her through her days, cooking at the restaurant, picking up the kids from school, the quiet domestic moments with Ethan. They interviewed people, Gerald and Rosa, the kitchen staff, customers who'd become regulars. Even Oliver and Mia, who stole the show with their unfiltered honesty. Lena makes really good soup, Oliver told the camera seriously. But more than that, she's nice. And my dad smiles now. He didn't smile before. Mia's contribution was simpler. She's my mom. That's the most important thing. The documentary premiered at Tribeca Film Festival. Lena wore a dress Ethan had picked out, feeling like an imposter in silken heels. But when the lights went down and her face appeared on screen, when she heard her own voice talking about her grandmother and survival and learning to take up space, something shifted. This was her story, messy and imperfect and real, and it mattered. The film won the Audience Award. Suddenly, Lena was everywhere, morning shows, podcasts, magazine covers. The shy waitress who'd learned to roar. The single mom who'd taken on the culinary establishment and won. She hated most of it, the makeup, the interviews, the way people wanted her to be inspirational instead of human. But she showed up anyway, because maybe some girl watching would see herself in Lena's story, would realize that invisible didn't mean powerless. Ethan proposed on a random Tuesday. No grand gesture, no elaborate plan. They were cooking together, Lena teaching him how to make pasta from scratch, and he just stopped, covered in flour, and said, "Marry me." She looked up from the dough. "What?" "Marry me. I know it's sudden. I know we haven't been together that long, but I've never been more sure of anything." He took her floury hands in his. "You make everything better. The kids, the food, my life. I don't want to do any of it without you." That's not very romantic. I'm not a romantic guy. I'm a guy who's in love with you and wants to make it official. Lena's heart was pounding. A year ago, she'd been alone in Astoria, counting pennies, watching her daughter fade. Now she stood in a penthouse kitchen, covered in flour, being proposed to by a man who'd somehow become her entire world. "Ask me again in 6 months," she said. Ethan blinked. "What?" "I'm not saying no. I'm saying ask me when you've seen me at my worst. When I'm exhausted and mean and not living up to whatever image you have of me. Ask me when it's hard, not when it's easy." He studied her face. "You're testing me. I'm protecting us both. I've made the mistake of rushing before. I won't do it again." "Okay." He kissed her, soft and sure. 6 months. But I'm going to make you fall so hard for me that you won't even hesitate. Pretty confident. I learned from the best. 6 months later, on another random Tuesday, Ethan asked again. They were arguing about Oliver's homework. Lena thought the teacher was assigning too much. Ethan thought structure was important. The debate was getting heated when Ethan suddenly stopped mid-sentence. "Marry me." Lena threw a dish towel at him. "You can't just propose to win an argument." "I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to marry you." He got down on one knee right there in the kitchen, pulling out a ring he'd apparently been carrying for weeks. "You wanted me to ask when it was hard, when I'd seen you at your worst. Well, I've seen you angry and exhausted and crying at 3 a.m. because you're worried about Mia's test results. I've seen you burn dinner and yell at the staff and doubt everything you've built, and I love you more now than I did 6 months ago. So I'm asking, will you marry me?" She looked at him, this man who'd stumbled into her life because his son wanted soup, who'd bulldozed through her defenses with money and stubbornness and unexpected gentleness, who'd become as necessary as breathing. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." The wedding was small, just family and close friends, held at Aurelius on a Sunday when the restaurant was closed. Mia was the maid of honor, Oliver the best man. They both took their roles seriously, standing straight and solemn as Lena and Ethan exchanged vows. "I promise to show up," Ethan said, "even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." "I promise to let you," Lena said, "to stop trying to do everything alone." They were imperfect promises, bound to be broken and remade. But they were honest, and honesty was enough. The reception was chaotic and loud, full of laughter and too much food. Lena had cooked most of it herself, unable to let go of control completely. The centerpiece was the soup, her grandmother's recipe, served in small cups, a reminder of where everything started. People toasted them. Gerald made a speech about never underestimating quiet people. Rosa talked about heart and courage and cooking like you mean it. Oliver told a rambling story about dinosaurs that somehow circled back to love. And Mia, small and serious and alive, said simply, "My mom taught me that brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. She's the bravest person I know." That night, after the guests left and the kids were asleep at the penthouse with Mrs. Chen, Lena and Ethan sat in the empty restaurant. The tables were littered with half-empty glasses and crumpled napkins, evidence of celebration. "We should clean up," Lena said. "We should, but I don't want to move." "Me neither." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city through the windows. Somewhere out there, people were living their lives, struggling and surviving, loving and losing, building something from nothing the way Lena had. "Do you ever think about how different things would be?" Ethan asked. "If I hadn't come to the restaurant that night? If Oliver hadn't asked for soup?" "All the time, but I try not to dwell on it." "Why not?" "Because we can't live in the land of what if. We can only live in the land of what is." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "And what is pretty good." "Just pretty good?" "Okay, really good. Don't let it go to your head." He laughed. Too late. 2 years later, Aurelius got a Michelin star. Lena cried when she got the news, then immediately called it pretentious nonsense. But she hung the certificate in her office anyway, a reminder that the girl from Astoria had made something that mattered. More restaurants tried to poach her, offered huge salaries, creative freedom, their name above the door. She turned them all down. Aurelius was hers in the ways that mattered, not on paper, but in every dish she created, every staff member she mentored, every customer who left feeling fed in more ways than one. She started a program, culinary training for women from low-income backgrounds, teaching them the skills her grandmother had passed down to her. No fancy techniques, no expensive ingredients, just honest cooking and the confidence to claim space in a kitchen. The first graduate was a single mother from Brooklyn, 43 years old and convinced she was too old to start over. 6 months later, she was running her own catering business. "You gave me this," she told Lena at the graduation ceremony. "No," Lena said. "You gave it to yourself. I just showed you it was possible." Oliver and Mia grew up together, more siblings than friends. They fought over everything, the remote, the last cookie, who got to sit in the front seat. But they also defended each other fiercely, a united front against the world. Mia's cancer went into remission, then 5 years of remission. Then the doctors stopped using that word and started saying cured, knocking on wood, cautiously optimistic. She grew tall and confident, inheriting her mother's quiet strength and adding her own brand of fearlessness. Oliver stayed sweet, even as he hit the awkward teenage years. He was fascinated by science, wanted to be a doctor, spent weekends volunteering at the hospital where Mia had been treated. Someone helped us, he said simply when Ethan asked why. I want to help someone else. Sarah remarried and had another child. She and Lena weren't friends, exactly, but they'd found a way to coexist. Oliver spent summers in Seattle, came back with stories about his little sister, about his mom's new life. It was complicated and imperfect and somehow okay. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Ethan surprised Lena with a trip to Italy. Just the two of them, leaving the kids with Mrs. Chen and a detailed list of instructions. I can't leave the restaurant for 2 weeks, Lena protested. The restaurant will survive. Gerald's got it covered. You need a break. I need to work. You need to remember how to exist as something other than a chef and a mother. He pulled her close. You need to be Lena again. Just Lena. So she went. They wandered through Tuscany, eating pasta and drinking wine and doing absolutely nothing productive. Lena fought the guilt at first, the feeling that she should be working, cooking, taking care of someone. But slowly, she learned to just be. One night, sitting on a terrace overlooking rolling hills, Ethan asked her if she was happy. What kind of question is that? An honest one. She thought about it, really thought. Yeah, I think I am. You think? I am. It's just weird to say out loud, like admitting it might make it go away. It won't go away. This is real. We're real. I know. But I spent so long surviving that I forgot what living felt like. Sometimes I still catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop. What if there is no other shoe? What if this is just life? Lena looked out at the Tuscan sunset, at the man who'd somehow become her partner in every sense, and let herself believe it. Then I guess we're doing okay. Better than okay. Don't push your luck. Back in New York, life continued its messy forward motion. The restaurant thrived. The kids grew. Ethan and Lena fought and made up, struggled with money and schedules and all the mundane challenges of building a life together. It wasn't perfect. They still had hard days, moments when the past reared up and reminded them of old wounds. Lena still had nightmares about losing Mia, about being invisible again. Ethan still worked too much, still tried to solve problems with money instead of presents. But they showed up. That was the promise they'd made, and they kept it. Even on the days when showing up was hard, when it would have been easier to retreat into old patterns, they stayed. 10 years after that rainy night, Lena stood in the Aurelius kitchen during the dinner rush. The restaurant was packed, the kitchen chaotic, orders coming in faster than they could plate them. Her sous chef was yelling about something. A line cook had burned a batch of sauce, and the dishwasher had broken again. It was exactly where she belonged. She plated a bowl of soup. The soup, her grandmother's recipe, and sent it out to table 12. A family with a small child who'd asked if they made anything simple, anything that tasted like home. Through the window, she could see them. The moment the kid tasted it, his whole face lit up. The parents smiled at each other, that knowing look of parents everywhere who'd just witnessed a small miracle. Lena thought about the chain of moments that had led here. Her grandmother teaching her to dice onions, losing everything, and learning to build again. One rainy night, and a billionaire's son who just wanted soup. A woman who'd decided to be brave when brave was the last thing she felt. Gerald appeared beside her. Table 12 wants to thank the chef. Tell them it's just soup. We both know it's not. He was right. It was never just soup. It was memory and legacy and love cooked down to its essence. It was her grandmother's hands guiding hers. It was every woman who'd ever made something from nothing, who'd fed their families on hope and creativity and sheer stubborn will. It was proof that invisible people could become seen, that quiet voices could learn to roar, that the girl from Astoria could build an empire of her own, one bowl at a time. Lena wiped her hands on her apron and headed out to the dining room. The family looked up when she approached, the kid's face still lit with joy. That was the best soup I've ever had, he said seriously. I'm glad you liked it. Can you teach me how to make it? Lena smiled, thinking of all the women who'd passed this recipe down through generations. The secret, she said, kneeling down to his level, is that you have to cook it with love. That's what makes it special. Just love? And star anise. And showing up even when it's hard. And believing that what you make matters. She ruffled his hair. but mostly love. The kid nodded solemnly, committing this wisdom to memory. Lena stood and returned to the kitchen, to the chaos and heat and endless work, to the life she'd built from broken pieces and impossible odds. Behind her, through the window, she could see Ethan arriving to pick her up, Oliver and Mia trailing behind him, both taller now, both growing into themselves. Her family. Her impossible, imperfect, beautiful family. This was what winning looked like. Not perfection or wealth or fame. Just showing up. Just cooking with love. Just being brave enough to claim the space she'd always deserved. The soup was simple. The life was complicated. But somewhere in between, Lena had found something worth holding on to, and she wasn't letting go.